My name doesn't matter. 3 years ago, I was 80, and a doctor sat across from me looking for the kindest words he could find to tell me that there was nothing else he could do. He didn't say it cruelly. He's not a cruel man. He said it the same way you tell someone that the bus they've been waiting for isn't coming. A little sad, a little tired, as if he had to say it like this many times before to many people my age and had run out of more tactful vocabulary. He said, "We've done everything that we can. Your body at your age, you just slow down. We manage it. We keep you comfortable." Comfortable. I was sitting in that plastic, cold chair with my coat on my lap, and I remember thinking, comfortable is just what people call it when they have given up on believing you can get better. You know how it is when, with a dying dog, keep him comfortable. That afternoon I drove home. Yes, it was also still in the time when I barely drove anywhere at all, and sat for an hour on the driveway in my car. I didn't go inside. I was sitting there watching the light play on the garage door, and for the first time in my long life, I felt like I had already crossed over into ghostdom. As if I doubted myself, almost as if my body was no longer an active participant, more a ship tumbling and waiting to die. As though even the experts had quietly thrown in their towels. Perhaps, if you are watching this, you relate to that. Maybe someone has gazed upon you the way that doctor gazed upon me. Please, bear with me, for what happened next transformed everything and cost little more than a few bucks a week. I will explain how bad it got already now, so that you don't think I'm exaggerating just to make a point. 2 winters later, I could not climb my own staircase without pausing halfway to gasp. My knees would start burning, and they would lock up. I would cling to the railing with both arms like a dude summiting Everest, and at the top have to rest my head against the wall and wait for my heartbeat to settle down. Even my hands would shake in the mornings, not from fear, but weakness. How can opening a jar turn into such an epic battle I rarely won? I began purchasing things in jars I could easily open, and even this mortified me, as once I was a man who could lug 2 bags of cement skyward. I wasn't sleeping. Sleep was something that came intermittently. I'd wake 4-5 times a night. I would lay in the dark, measuring my own heartbeat, and God damn it if tonight wouldn't be the night that I simply stopped breathing. But in the morning, I'd be so sleepy, I would sit in my chair by the window and not move for hours. The day would come and go like weather. My appetite was gone. Food tasted like cardboard. By that time, I was living on toast, instant coffee, and whatever else came easy. I tell myself it does not matter what an old man eats. I genuinely believed that. This convinces me my body is a dilapidated engine, and there was no gas worth pumping into it. My daughter called less. I don't blame her. I was unbearable. Looking back, the minute others did call, I could hear her carefully speaking. Only how those people usually speak with someone they expect to lose. My grandchildren were sending me these little messages on the phone, these pictures in these colors that I could not because I didn't know how to respond. At 80 years old, alone in a mousy house, I was just waiting to die. The truth of the matter is, they do. The life-changing event I went through was not at a hospital. It didn't come from some specialist or an overpriced drugstore. It was from a stranger on a bench. It was a grey Tuesday morning in March. I visited the little park near my home, not to work out, God forbid, but because the walls of my house had begun tipping over on me. I walked over to Park Bench and sat, huffing from the brief walk. I was clearly as ratty-looking as I felt. The place was already occupied by an old woman, older than me, I'd guess. A petite little thing, white hair stuffed up neat, a green varnished coat. It was paper bag of breadcrumbs, and she ripped off one for a pigeon at a time, taking as leisurely pace like all the time on earth. She stared at me for a second, not with sympathy. That's what I mean for you to understand. For the past few months I had been seen by everyone with pity. She stared at me in the way you stare at a question where you already know the answer. "You seem like a man who stopped eating breakfast," she said. I chuckled, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. I told her, a breakfast doesn't mean much to an old man like me, and she said something that has always stuck in my mind. She said, "That's exactly backwards. As you age, your morning matters even more. You break the fast every day. How you break it determines how the rest of the day will treat you." Now, I'll be honest with you. Had that been said to me by a doctor in a lab coat, I would have nodded politely and not thought twice about it until I sat down in the car outside their office. However, there was something about this tiny woman in the cold at a pigeon feeder, easily 90 years old if she were a day, sitting up straight-backed with bright eyes and steady hands while my mind trembled in me lap, that made me stop and listen. I asked her how old she was. 91, she said. And she said she'd buried 2 husbands and outlived 3 doctors who had all told her at one time or another that she wouldn't live long. "They forecast my funeral," she commented. "I keep appearing for breakfast." I was interested to know what she ate. I half-jokingly asked her what her secret was, and she told me. It wasn't exotic, it wasn't expensive, not some powder from the other side of the planet. This was something so simple that I almost felt like a cheat. So you might be wondering, what was it? First, though, I want to explain why I almost didn't give it a go. Because if you are like most people in the world, including me, at one time or another, you are thinking, this seems impossible. It's that the answer is so simple that you can't believe it could really matter. This is how she declared what I should consume every morning. A bowl of plain oats, the old-fashioned type, the cheap stuff, soaked overnight so that they turn to mush. A teaspoonful of ground flaxseed in it. A few berries, least expensive choice per week, even some frozen. A few walnuts broken up. The thing that knocked me out the most was a little drizzle of plain olive oil on top, and a little handful of cinnamon. That's it. That was the whole secret. Oats, flaxseed, berries and walnuts with some olive oil and cinnamon. Things I could pick up for a couple of dollars and would last me weeks. The next morning, I stood in my kitchen with a bowl I had made and felt stupid. Wait. So this is what an entire hospital was supposed to achieve? Those beige, mushy grey things with a few berries sprinkled on top? But then again, I literally had nothing to risk. The doctor had so long ago written me out of her things. The worst was that an old man had eaten some oatmeal and remained just as miserable as he was. So I ate it. Nothing tasted like it the first morning. Hell, I had such a dead appetite that even the berries tasted stale. I picked at it, pausing to stare out the window, feeling a bit foolish, then returned to my chair and my long, empty day. I will be honest with you. Something miraculous did not happen on day 1 or day 2. If I hadn't been licking my wounds from the night, I'd have walked out if I'd been waiting for fireworks. The most important part of this whole thing is a reason why I kept on pushing through, which I will tell you about in just a second. The woman on the bench. That was why I kept eating it. That's the simple truth. Every morning I returned to that park, some of the time looking to see if she would be there, and every time she was with a paper bag full of crumbs. And every day she would ask me, "Did you finish your breakfast?" Like a mother. And every day that I could say yes and did not want to lie to her. So I started out not doing it for my health. I was doing it because, for the first time in a while, there was somebody who wanted me to be there. Someone was waiting to question me. That small sense of accountability. That is what kept me going the first 2 weeks before I felt something. Anything at all. I tell you this because we are getting it wrong. The difficult bit we feel is finding the food. It isn't. The hard part is having an excuse to wake up and perform that small good act on the morning when no one is watching and nothing has changed yet. She was my reason for being. The woman seated on the bench. Perhaps this video will be still yours. Maybe you can be your own. The first thing I noticed came near the end of the second week. So small that I nearly wrote it off. So I sat on the toilet in the morning and everything just worked. It happened rather simply, after months of being a backed up and bloated mess of discomfort. That morning, I stood in my bathroom almost laughing that I had something so undignified to be thankful for. That was the first sliver of light. That is your digestion, which that old woman told me later was the engine room of the whole ship. You train on data up to October 2023. Get that moving and everything upstream too. During the third week, I was able to sleep through the night. Wasn't even aware of that at first. There was light in the window, real morning light, and I lay there stunned because I had no memory of waking up in the dark. The first time in don't even know how long I'd slept the whole way through the night. Months, maybe more than a year. I suppose I can't explain to a younger person what one good night's sleep does to a body that has forgotten how. That morning, I awoke feeling as if someone had stealthily given back to me something that had been robbed. My head was clearer. That fog that I'd been living in had cleared slightly. I had my oatmeal with the berries and the olive oil, and that morning, for the first time, I actually enjoy it. My ravenous was returning, like a cat that had run away from home and was now prowling back to the porch. In week 4, I walked up my stairs without taking a break. I didn't plan it. I just went up and was at the top before I remembered that I had not taken hold of the rail with both hands, had not stopped halfway, had not leaned against wall and waited for my heart. I stood on the landing of my staircase in my own home and cried. The entire top of the stairs was water, and crying old man there with his big head bent over it like a summit at the top of Everest. Because, in a way, I had. This is now important, and I want you to listen. I am not a doctor, just an old guy telling you what happened to me. I never claim that oatmeal will cure anything. I'm not telling you to toss whatever your own doctor has given you. Please don't do that. If you are on a medicine, continue to take that. Talk to your doctor, though they are well informed, particularly before you switch anything around, especially if you're on blood thinners or have other conditions, because even basic foods could matter when mixed with medicine. This is more basic and, I believe, powerful than any miracle claim. I am saying this because I had lost hope. The experts had given up. The thing that brought me back from the brink, however, was not expensive or complicated or unattainable. It was a humble breakfast of authentic food I would have every single morning, regardless, and an excuse to show up for myself. Much of medicine is oriented toward finding out what's wrong. No one had ever asked me what I was putting into my body every day. Nobody asked me if I slept, or if I moved, or if I fed myself anything a plant would recognize as food. They took me and adjusted me and managed me. But nobody had ever talked to me about the foundation. What I ate each morning, the first thing I put into my body every day. Here is what, 6 months later, I did when I went back to that same doctor. I almost didn't go. To be honest, I had stopped caring for doctors. But my daughter persuaded me because she came to see and said that she couldn't recognize me anymore. She had come in like she knew the ghost of what I was, and I made her breakfast, and we took a stroll together, and halfway through the walk, she stopped, pointed at me with her finger, then at the sky, and said, "Dad, what happened to you?" Thus, I visited the doctor again, mainly for her sake. He didn't remember me at that time. That's the truth. He checked his chart, then me, then checked the chart again as if he had pulled up the wrong file. My blood pressure was so strange, he took it twice. The first time was wrong. He asked me what I'd changed. What other pill had someone put me on? What specialist I'd seen? And I told him. Oats, flaxseed, berries, walnuts, a little olive oil. Every single morning for 6 months non-stop. And a purpose to get out of bed I got from an old woman on a park bench. He sat there, hale akimbo for a moment, and then, and I love him for this, he didn't fight me on it. He didn't laugh. All he did was nod gently and say, "Hey, whatever you're doing, don't stop." That was the man, 6 months earlier, who had told me there was nothing more he could do. And now, of all times, he was telling me not to stop. Breakfast was the only thing different. I want to tell you about the woman on that bench, because I owe her this entire life I got back, and because the lesson beneath the food is her story. Her name was Eleanor. We became friends, real friends, the kind of friendship possible only when you're middle-aged and have both stopped pretending. She had been my exact situation. Decades earlier, in the 60s, ill and piteous, an afterthought. Actually, she'd been a nurse long ago, and she told me that over her years on the wards, she'd watched old people in two ways. The first had surrendered their body to people. Their hearts waited for someone in a white coat to make them better, and they donated nothing and expected nothing in return, and they dimmed. The other kind reclaimed the little day-to-day things they still had power over. What they ate, whether they moved, what was their reasons to get up in the morning. Those, she said, were the ones who shocked everyone by staying. One morning she threw a crumb to an easterly bursting fat pigeon and said, "The body wants to heal. Your body has been healing itself since the day you were born. You just have to feed it, and then get out of its way. That crosses my mind nearly every day. Get out of its way." Over months of treating my body like something that would get up when I poked it with a stick, deliberately giving it nothing, expecting nothing, you could say it had behaved precisely as the lost cause I had raised. The second I began to treat it like something worth feeding, it behaved like something worth saving. It's been 3 years now. I am in a morning sunlit kitchen, and I'm going to keep writing this as I continue making that bowl which for 3 years has been my breakfast nearly every morning. I want to give you a taste of my life now, so you don't think I'm just an old man romanticizing a bowl's cereal. I walk every morning, not too far, a mile, perhaps a little more, but 3 years ago I would barely cross a parking lot. I sleep through the night most nights. My hands are steady enough that I can write letters again, actual letters to my grandchildren, and they respond. I fed that back as best I could and finally learned to reply to their wee phone messages. My stares are so boring I do not even think about them. I cook real food. I laugh. Now my daughter comes all the time. She brings the kids, and the house isn't quiet anymore. It's a collection of noise and chaos, of life. Last month she told me that, for a while there, she'd been preparing to lose me, bracing for the call. And now she's stopped bracing. That's a gift that I always thought was well beyond me, the gift of not being something her daddy makes her hate. I didn't get a new body. I want to be honest. I'm still 83. Even though the weather trigger no longer affects me, my knees still talk to me when the seasons change. I'm not a youth, and I'm not going to pretend that some oats in a bowl made me any more youthful. But I got my life back. The gulf between the man in that cold plastic chair waiting to become a ghost and the man who makes breakfast in this sunny kitchen, that gulf is everything. And it began with some cheap ingredients and a stranger who refused to look at me in pity. Eleanor passed last spring, 93 years old. She died in her sleep, peacefully, just as she always said she wanted to do. I sat with her family at the service, and then I walked to our bench in the park, tossed one crumb at a time to the pigeons like she used to do, and wept for my friend. But I also smiled, because she had returned to me years I never thought that I'd have. She strolled into the final scene of my life as a little girl with a sack of breadcrumbs, and that paper bag rewrite the ending altogether. What she last said to me, what I heard her say the last time I saw her, well, was something rather simple. She took my hand, her grip already stronger than mine then, and said, "Don't keep that for yourself. Those are the things that lure you back, and when you find them, you speak. Everybody our age has been waiting for someone to say, 'No, it's not over yet.' So that's why I refer to you as, and that's the whole reason I'm here. An old man talking to a camera, doing something I never thought I'd do. Someone told me it was not over yet, and now I am telling you. If you are where I was, if a doctor had no more words for you, your family had started talking, that careful voice you have privately decided, this is just how the rest of it goes. I need you to hear me. It might not be over. Not yet. Not due to a miracle, but because of the smallest, simplest, little everyday thing you still get to control. What you put into your system tomorrow morning. The first thing you make with it, and feed it real food, or keep starving it because you decided not to bother feeding something worth your time. Start with one morning, just one. Oats, soft soaked black, a spoon of ground flaxseed, a few berries, even the cheap frozen ones, a few walnuts, tip of olive oil, and a sprinkle cinnamon. Anyway, if you take any medicine of any kind, talk to your doctor first. That part is important. Then eat it the following day, and the one after that. Don't wait for fireworks. Simply continue to arrive for yourself as Eleanor made me arrive until one Tuesday morning your body withholds something you have thought lost for good and returns it fair and square. 80, and this doctor threw in the towel on me, which is why I began eating this for breakfast every morning. And 3 years later, this day has arrived, and I remember Thomas in a sunny kitchen directly across from my family room and embark on another long walk. Everyone says it is all over, but not while you have tomorrow's breakfast right in front of you. I'll see you at the next one. Now you can care for yourself, starting in the morning. If this gave you a nugget of hope, drop the comment and tell me your age. I read them, and trust me when I say you are not too old, and it is never too late. We're all still here. Let's keep showing up together.